Welcome to Checkered Flag. This week we're back at Oschersleben for rounds 11 and 12 of the German Touring Car Masters. It's been a while since the teams have actually raced, so they'll be raring to go after the torrential downpour that was Lautzsring. Well, it didn't quite go to plan at the Lautzsring. The brand new $100 million, $250 million Deutschmark venue close to the Polish border. Germany had a dose of English summer, but this time it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained. This was more like a regatta than a motor race. And the hard-won first two rows of Schneider, Fassler, Lamy and Alsen led the field round behind the pace car. In fact, it was so wet that some cars even had difficulty staying on the track at these speeds. The track struggled to cope with the huge volumes of rain and standing water. Cars were even aquaplaning at very slow speeds, and there was no way the race could be started in these conditions. The spectators were getting soaked, and the drivers were getting bored, but safety is always the prime consideration. But it's always a difficult call to make in these circumstances, but the organisers can, of course, talk to the pace car driver, and when he's having difficulty staying on the track, then it becomes an easy decision. Eventually, after 14 laps then behind the pace car, the organisers reluctantly but sensibly red flagged the race. The rain, of course, never let up, so regrettably, the race meeting was cancelled. So the thousands of spectators went home absolutely soaked and very soggy, but at least there were 20 pristine, freshly washed race cars. Surprisingly, they awarded points based upon qualifying for the first race. So that left Schneider on 146, Ludwig on 104, Reuter on 95, Fassler on 83, Winkelhock on 70, and Peter Dumbreck on 62.
Better weather at least here at Oschersleben, 30 kilometres from Magdeburg, the host of what are now rounds 12 and 13 of the German Touring Car Masters. The star drivers on the truck and on the track in qualifying. Bernd Schneider setting the first really quick qualifying lap, going a whole 2.4 seconds quicker than Marcel Fessler. But the track already proving very slippery and very difficult, with dust making it even worse. As Marcel Thiemann and James Thompson came to terms with their cars, all eyes were on the double race winner from rounds 3 and 4 here. Manuel Reuter had dominated, heading a string of Opel coupes. This time in qualifying he was struggling, setting only 9th on his first qualifying run. Another driver who was struggling was Marcel Thiemann. Remember Bernd Schneider's accident here in June? Well, Thiemann was following literally in his tyre tracks. Unlike Schneider, though, he couldn't reverse back out and regain the track. Thiemann was out, but he was looking for the biggest tube of superglue in the world, and he was only 17th on the grid. Now it was smoking Joe Winkelhock's turn. 4th fastest after the first qualifying runs, but this one was a scorcher. 1:25.699, provisional pole position. The ball was back in Mercedes-Benz court. Meanwhile, Christian Abt, one of 4 Audis here this weekend, is finding his TT Coupe something of a handful on his way to 15th on the grid. All eyes on the clock too for Peter Dumbreck. A good early sector time meant that he was able to improve to 6th fastest on his final qualifying run. But at the head of the order, Manuel Reuter was back on track. And this time the clock on the right of our screens would prove that Opel again had the superiority in qualifying at Oschersleben. Pole position 1:25.364 over 150 kilometres an hour. But Bernd Schneider wasn't giving up just yet. With 3 Opels at the top of the timesheets, Schneider's last lap was a scorcher, the first sub-1 minute 25 second lap of the DTMs here at Oschersleben. So it's pole position for Bernd Schneider and the Mercedes-Benz team, with that phalanx of Opels right behind. Schneider heading Uwe Alsen by mere fractions of a second on the front row of the grid, then Manuel Reuter and Joe Winkelhock 3rd and 4th. Row 3 of the starting grid, Peter Dumbreck alongside Timo Scheider, Mercedes and Opel. Christian Menzel 7th and the Portuguese Pedro Lamy 8th, ahead of the Frenchman Eric Ellery, with Thomas Jaeger in his Mercedes completing the top 10. The fireworks already exploding trackside as 20 cars take the rolling start, 28 laps ahead of them, into the final corner as the start, Marshall negotiates the cars into position, but it's going to be Mercedes-Benz versus Opel at the head of the field.
Of course, rolling starts are very different to a standing start. You just got to get your car in the right place and just get onto the gas at exactly the right moment, and of course follow the pace of the poleman.
Poleman in this case, Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes-Benz, the black and orange Opel of Uwe Altzen lines up alongside of him. Schneider will now have the inside line down into that very tight opening sequence of corners. Watch the lights, watch the acceleration as the horsepower is unleashed. Schneider judging it absolutely perfectly. Altzen taps into his slipstream. Joe Winkelhock making a big move in the red car on the outside. He's through into third place, tyre smoke behind. Oh, and Winkelhock's off, he's across the gravel, and that is right into the middle of the pack. And cars are spinning in every which direction. Timo Scheider's blue Opel's out. It's Bernd Schneider at the head of the field. Uwe Altzen, Reuter, Menzel. Oh, and a bonnet flies there from Pedro Lami's car, and cars are stationary. Winkelhock, Timo Scheider, Stefano Modena, Jäger, Dumbreck, and Marcel Fessler there steams his way off the track. Absolute chaos. 7 cars stationary, maybe 11 cars damaged in that shunt.
The track is absolutely blocked. There's no way that they're going to carry on with the race at the moment. I don't think even the pace car can get through there. So I guess they'll have a complete restart, which will give a chance for some of the cars to get patched up. But these cars don't even know the track is blocked. So I guess their pits will be telling them to slow up in a moment, because clearly they can't continue with the race. There is absolute carnage down there. This is a real motorway pile-up. And here we see it again. And Joe Winkelhock looks like he just outbraked himself. And then, as he tries to rejoin the track, he just clips Scheider, and that spins around, also spins Tiemann, and completely blocks the track. And the problem is, at the start, of course, all the cars are so close together that you have very little chance to avoid the cars.
Well, one good thing, I suppose, is there's the 4 Audis at the back. They've all worked their way through without any damage. So James Thompson and the rest of the Audi team are going to stay in. And I think they're the only manufacturer now with a full team of cars still running. Let's see it from Pedro Lami's point of view. Peter Dumbreck there on the inside in front of him. Ellery goes along the outside there. There's Dumbreck, gets spun round by Pedro Lamy. And, well, quite rightly, the red flags are being waved. No way through down in turns 1 and turn 2. There you can see the marshals now in the major clear-up operation. I think one of the biggest saloon car racing accidents I've ever seen. And a very expensive traffic jam on the start line.
Steve, seen it through. I've been in a few, and here we see it again. Joe Winkelhock just outbraking himself. Maybe he was touched, to be fair, you just don't know, because it was so tight there. And he tries, quite rightly, to get back onto the track, but in so doing, he clips another car, and then it's just mayhem. And as I said, as we've seen from the onboard camera from Lamy, really, you just don't have time to change direction of the car and actually avoid the accident that's happening in front of you. And here we see the walking wounded, literally, with a bonnet flying off there and a car in a terrible condition behind. And they'll have a very short time now to try and get those cars patched up and out onto the track for the restart. Well, of course, I guess some of them will have to start from the pit lane because they won't be able to actually make it to the grid.
Well, their number 8, Michael Bartels, he started the race 11th. It looks as if they're going to need muscle power to get that car back to the pits. And he is not the only one. Tow rope being used there for the number 2 car. That's Thomas Jäger's Mercedes. And heavy front-end damage. That is Darren Turner's car. And oil all over the front of that car. Klaus Ludwig, the veteran, even he wasn't immune to that one. Ludwig, don't forget, would have been right in the middle of that, piling in from 14th place on the starting grid. He visited the gravel traps in qualifying, was starting well down. And he's been tied up in that accident as well. So very nifty work by the mechanics now are going to be needed to get these men back into the race. And it will be a race over 25 laps now, rather than 28. Just look at the front-end damage there on that black Mercedes-Benz. Poor old Marcel Fessler, well, it's going to be a battle against the clock for him to have any chance at all of being in this race.
In fact, as well as Fessler, there's other cars affected: Lamy, Scheider, Winkelhock, Tiemann, Jäger, Turner, and Peter Dumbreck.
Well, Marcel Tiemann, not for the first time in the weekend, is going to have to get the super glue out. Meanwhile, Timo Scheider, well, there's the wrecked rear suspension on his Opel Astra. And let's take another look at that as the cars come around turn 2. There's Winkelhock, plows into the back of Scheider's Opel, and that's what wrecked that rear suspension. And then just look at the carnage behind.
It's a very difficult situation, and I guess some of the drivers won't be too happy with Joe, whether he caused it or whether he was pushed, because It's wrecked the race for a lot of drivers if they've got to start at the back of the grid or the pit lane. And here we see Lami's bonnet disappearing. Lucky he only got away with that sort of damage. The mechanics, of course, love these pressurised situations, getting cars fixed in a very short period of time.
Well, I'm not too sure about that. Some work going on the front end of Klaus Ludwig's car. Meanwhile, Joe Winkelhock, well, guilty or innocent, he's got time for a quick ciggy before they bring his car back to the pits. And Smoking Joe living up to his reputation in, shall we just say, the less normal way there. But Joe will not be very happy about that outcome. He'd worked so hard in qualifying. Meanwhile, there is the front end of Peter Dambrecht's Mercedes being recovered back over the Armco. And I don't think that's Souvenir Hunters. I reckon that's on its way back to the pits garage.
I think you're right, Steve. I have to say, though, Joe, to me, doesn't look very guilty. Well, he doesn't, he looks very relaxed, but that's Joe all over, because I've been in those situations with him, and I know he's been guilty, and he's always looks innocent.
Well, the clean-up operation continuing at Oschersleben, and I hope that is the driver of the world's fastest road sweeper, because the cars coming to the line now, 12 cars on the track, 3 from the pits, and it's Uwe Elson against Bernd Schneider again. Head-to-head this time. Schneider doesn't have the advantage, and Uwe Elson is going to go the high, wide and handsome way, all the way round into the race lead. Superb stuff. Manuel Reuter, Klaus Ludwig being a little bit cautious this time, then Menzel, Christian up to 6th place in the Audi, it's getting squeezed wide. But it's Opel lead at Oschersleben for the 2nd time, and Uwe Elson has the advantage this time over Bernd Schneider. Manuel Reuter 3rd, Klaus Ludwig and Christian Menzel going very hard, 4th and 5th, and Christian up right in the middle of this as well. The first time we've seen the Audi running near the front, and it started to come good at last, but whoa, up to Menzel there, absolutely door handle to door handle, and taking advantage of that now, Stefano Modena and Eric Ellery closing in 7th and 8th. Great opening lap.
Very good indeed, especially for the Opels. And Elson, he clearly has got the legs on the Mercedes on the straight. He managed to pull ahead of Schneider and got into the lead. Now, you look at this situation of the track here. After that first lap accident, obviously some cars went back to the pits with oil or fluids dropping from their cars, and there's a lot of cement dust down, and the track's dusty anyway and very ungrippy in places, so it's going to make it very difficult for 3 or 4 laps until the track cleans up.
Race leader, no problem for him over Elsa. Oh, problem further down though, and that is Modena and Menzel. They were battling for 6th, 7th and 8th with Christian Abt. Well, the Audi's okay, Menzel's rejoining, but for Stefano Modena, off go the switches, off comes the seatbelt, and he is walking home again, and that is not a happy Italian. And maybe those track conditions, you were right, Will, as we see there, 3 wheels on his wagon. Christian Menzel is not going to see the checkered flag. Disappointing for him. Let's take another look at that.
Yeah, and here we see the replay, and Menzel just loses it all by himself. He just gets on the dirt, slightly on the outside of the corner, and poor old Modena, it's always difficult as a driver from behind. You just don't know which way the car's going to go, and you have to second guess. Unfortunately, he got it wrong and clipped Menzel and is out as well.
There's Stefano Modena's car being pushed to a place of greater safety. Dramas already in this race, but a great battle on at the head of the field. Uwe Elson pursued by Bernd Schneider, championship leader. But Uwe Elson, a good run here, is going to improve his point scoring tally. More to the point, it's going to help his teammate Manuel Reuter. The Opel in 3rd position. Look out for the white and yellow car at the top of our screens. These two are pulled well away. Then a tremendous battle here. Eric Ellery, Michael Bartels, and Bartels is losing his rear window. The entire tailgate flapping on the back of Bartels' Opel.
That's actually giving him quite a lot more extra downforce, and I guess he'll be struggling with a bit of understeer into the corners now, because he's acting like an even bigger rear wing.
Well, it's keeping him ahead of Timo Scheider in 6th position at the moment. Meanwhile, battle most definitely on for the lead, as Timo Scheider is closing in. And Joe Winkelhock is in all sorts of problems. Now just look at the back of the Opel Astra though. It's all over the shop. Obviously some major problem.
Well, he's either driving it like that to test the car and try and feel, so he can feel what the problem is, or he's got a seriously loose bit of rear end suspension. And I guess he'll be in the pits pretty quickly.
Now Bernd Schneider has to temper this attack on Uwe Elson with caution. Don't forget, if he spins off and makes a mistake, it could easily hand the championship lead over to fellow Mercedes-Benz driver Klaus Ludwig. He's 2nd in the championship at the moment. Uwe Elson really isn't in such a strong point-scoring position, but Manuel Reuter right behind most definitely is. Oh, and Joe Winkelhock, as you said, something a little bit loose in the back there. He's not worried about the rattling in the back now. He's more worried about getting that Opel Astra back onto the track. Meanwhile, the pursuit of race leader Uwe Elson continues. Again, Bernd Schneider runs wide over the curbs there. He's pushing that Mercedes very hard indeed. The question is, can he make it ahead of the Opel?
What I think is amazing, though, of course, is Alton, who entertained us so regally at Nürburgring when I think he went off the track something like 11 times, has just not put a foot wrong, and he's soaking up the pressure that Schneider's putting him under, and it is a lot of pressure.
Through the final sequence of S's then, heading back up to the start-finish line. Meanwhile, Joe Winkelhoff in the pits, out of the race. The Gullwing Opel is not going to go any further. But the Holzer Motorsport car of Uwe Alton most definitely is soaking up the pressure, as you said, Will, with Bernd Schneider right on his exhaust pipe through the S's again. And the question is now, can Uwe Alton keep driving with one eye on the mirrors, one eye through the windscreen, and hold back the most experienced man in the German Touring Car Masters? Welcome back to round 12 of the German Touring Car Masters from Oschersleben in Germany. And Uwe Alton soaks up the pressure from Bernd Schneider, championship leader. He's in second place and he's determined to try and find a way past. Takes a look this time, but again, Alton closes the door.
I think what Schneider's trying to do is put Alton under all sorts of additional pressure. He's moving the car around, putting it into different positions going into corners. So he's trying to unsettle Alton and make him almost drive in his rear-view mirror, and then, of course, Alton could easily make a mistake.
Fleeting glance at the top of our mirrors as Uwe Alton and Bernd Schneider continue their duel. Third place man Manuel Reuter, of course, third in the championship. He's on 95 points compared with 140 to the man second in the race here, Bernd Schneider. And Reuter again, you saw him just quickly at the top of our screens. Third place ahead of Eric Ellery, Laurent Elo fifth. Then this tremendous battle, Michael Bartels, Timo Scheider and Klaus Ludwig, the veteran in 8th position. Young Timo Scheider in the blue and white car had his suspension wrecked at the start of the race. The lips there of Laurent Aiello as well, the 1999 Le Mans winner in his Audi TT, the best the TT has ever done. Michael Bartels still trailing pieces of rear window. Battered and bruised cars here, and Michael Bartels throws up the sand in the face of Timo Scheider and Klaus Ludwig. And I've got to say, Timo Scheider, the graduate of Formula 3 and Formula Renault, really is maturing with every single race.
That's what you have to do at this level when you're driving with such experienced touring car veterans like Ludwig, who knows every trick in the book. But you just watch Ludwig. I've just got a horrible suspicion that he's not going to be staying in that third in that train of cars for long.
6th, 7th and 8th then, the battle there, the 5th place Audi ahead, and there's confirmation of our leader. And just look at the gaps now. Alton and Schneider really in a class of their own, Reuter likewise, and then the 4th, 5th and 6th places well separated from the cars down the field. Joe Winkelhoff down in 12th, having made that pit stop, and he is in all sorts of handling trouble. 3 of the 4 Audis still running though, and that is good news for the Audi team, as Klaus Ludwig now, the most experienced man in German touring car, in fact probably in any touring car racing, starts to make his move. And a huge packed grandstand, 57,000 spectators here this weekend. The German Touring Car Masters packing them in, and Klaus Ludwig again gives them entertainment, takes another look down the inside, and young Timo Scheider keeps the door closed firmly in his face, and taking advantage of that, ex-Formula 3000 Formula 1 driver Michael Bartels still trails his rear window, but is pulling away. And again, Ludwig, a very, very different line through the corner here. Now, was that strategic, or was it a mistake?
I think it was a mistake, Steve, because he hasn't actually gained anything at all. In fact, he's lost a car or two's length on Scheider in front, but I guess it won't take him long before he's back glued to his bumper. That's always the problem when you're running very close to a car in front, is that you can't actually get the corners properly sighted, and sometimes you can just get the line slightly wrong, and probably that's what happened with Ludwig on that occasion.
50-year-old Klaus Ludwig started racing back in 1969. He's won 36 German Touring Car Masters events. And this one may not be a victory, but here Klaus Ludwig is pushing about as hard as it can go. And meanwhile, that Audi is still looking very, very good in 5th place.
Going remarkably well, Steve. They've always said that they're going to use this season as a glorified test session, but clearly they've made huge advances, and the cars are running much further up the field, and they look a lot more stable as well, and a lot easier to drive. Earlier in the season, the drivers really struggled with the cars, and I think also they got a bit more straight line speed because they're really holding their own against the Opels and the Mercedes.
Well, one man holding his own very definitely at the moment. Michael Bartels in the white Opel there, still running in that 6th place. The man who drove for Zach Speed at the end of the 1980s in Formula 1. And the multiple Formula Ford champion, also has the slightly rare honour of being one of the few African motor racing champions. Actually took part in the African Karting Championship about 20 years ago and won it, not surprisingly. Meanwhile, though, this man, Timo Scheider, really is the big surprise. Graduated through from the Formula Junior category with BMW at the end of the 1990s, then straight through into the Formula Renault series. 2 seasons in German Formula 3 Championship, and he's on his way up. Meanwhile, Bernd Schneider, perhaps one of the other most experienced drivers here, closing in again on the tail of Uwe Alsen. Bernd Schneider, a man who's been a winner in FIA GTs. He's driven Formula 1 cars again for the Zakspeed team. Uwe Alsen ahead of him, the man who graduated through Formula 3, then through the various German touring car championships. Very, very different approach to the motor racing. He's very much a tin-top racer. Bernd Schneider will just about race anything, and still does, given half the chance, including the fearsome Mercedes CLK coupes in the GT Championship over the last couple of years. Bernd Schneider is also one of the most successful German touring car championship drivers after Klaus Ludwig. He leads the championship this year into the final series of rounds now. Just 6 rounds left in this German Touring Car Masters Series. We'll visit Hockenheim and the Nürburgring after this. And really, Bernd Schneider just needs to keep it cool, keep the pressure on Uwe Alsen, and he'll be quite happy with those points for second place.
We mustn't, of course, forget Alsen, who's continuing to soak up this massive pressure from Schneider, who, as you've said, is recognised as probably the best of the current German touring car drivers, and one of the best drivers in the world. Probably one of the drivers which Formula 1 and Grand Prix racing has really missed out on, because clearly he is a very, very talented driver. But Alsen is holding his own. He's doing a brilliant job, and all he's got to do now is just not make a mistake. Of course, he'll also realise that Schneider doesn't want to get tangled up with him, because he needs to finish. He needs to score those points for second place in order to extend his championship lead. He throws it off or gets tangled up with Alsen in an overtaking move, then Reuter's going to steal some points off him.
Well, Bernd Schneider, least likely man perhaps of anyone not to score. Bernd Schneider is one of the few drivers in the championship this year that has actually scored in every single round. In fact, where he scored least was actually Oschersleben, where he only got 12 points out of the 2 races back in June. That time was an Opel Astra Coupe benefit, and again, the Opel looking good again, but Bernd Schneider really has got that Mercedes up to the pace. Looking back, Manuel Reuter being well and truly dropped by the pace of these two now. And Uwe Alsen again just stretching his advantage now. The howl of these V8 engine cars, well over 450 brake horsepower, going through the rear-wheel drives of both cars, not a front-wheel drive Opel Astra as you have on the road. All the cars in the German Touring Car Masters, front engine, rear-wheel drive, the classic driving configuration. And the Opel and Mercedes battle for 6th, 7th and 8th places continues too. Michael Bartels, Timo Scheider, Klaus Ludwig, and the man who really does need to make up some ground now, Klaus Ludwig. He's second in the championship, and he needs to get up into a good point-scoring position to extend his advantage over Manuel Reuter, who's third in this race. 104 to 95 points for second and third in the championship at the moment. And Ludwig, after getting tied up in that shunt on the first lap of this race, is now going to have to work his way back up through the pack again. Don't forget, he started this race just 14th fastest after problems in qualifying, but Ludwig looking good this time. There's the Audi of Aiello, 5th. There's Bartels, Scheider, and Ludwig now starting to close in again on Timo Scheider. Maybe he's just been resting those brakes and tyres.
He probably has, Steve, and I think you've got to remember, Scheider's actually been driving a very good race. He hasn't made a mistake, so Ludwig just hasn't had the chance to get past him. And up to now, he's got a bit wide there, Scheider, and yes, Ludwig just popped down the inside there. That's the move he's been waiting for the whole race. It's happened with just about a lap to go.
Well, great driving by Klaus Ludwig. Disappointed, I'm sure, for Timo Scheider, just having to maintain that concentration. And now Michael Bartels has got to have his work cut out as well, with Ludwig closing in. Meanwhile, Laurent Aiello, ex-British touring car champion, of course, from 1999 with Nissan, really coming to terms a little more now with this Audi TT. And again, a very short wheelbase car for a big, powerful V8 with rear-wheel drive. But the team seems to be really getting their act together. James Thompson having quite a good weekend here too.
Yes, much better, and it's very good, of course, for a team like Audi to come good towards the end of the season, because you have a lot more confidence going into the 2001 season. That's so important for any team and manufacturer.
Well, James Thompson, of course, a sometime driver in this championship. Aiello been in the championship since round 1. And Laurent Aiello, the only races he's missed was, of course, when he was qualifying his car for the Le Mans 24 Hours, the 1998 Le Mans 24-hour winner. And again, that car riding well through the curbs there. He's really bouncing it over the curbs with a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it's altogether a much better race car now. It always surprised me that they painted the car such a bright yellow at the beginning of the season when it was so slow, but now obviously it doesn't quite matter so much.
P1 L3, 3 laps to go for Uwe Alsen. Bernd Schneider, time running out for him now in the Mercedes. Manuel Reuter still there in that third place. Eric Ellery, the Frenchman, in his Opel in fourth. Lauriello in the Audi in fifth. So Michael Bartels still holding off Klaus Ludwig for 6th and 7th places. Means that in the top 6 places we have all 3 different manufacturers in the German Touring Car Masters for the first time. The gap's still just 1.3 seconds between Uwe Alsen and Bernd Schneider. Now, into the closing stages of this race, drivers keeping off those patches of concrete dust which signify where the oil was put down after that opening accident. Just 25 laps in the race instead of 28 as a result of the stop and the restart, and that could well work in the favour of this man. Uwe Alsen continues on his way, and again he's opening a bit of space here on Bernd Schneider. Is Schneider taking it steady to have one final charge on the way to the checkered flag, or has the man from Betzdorf, the 33-year-old Opel driver, is he heading for his first German Touring Car Masters victory? It's looking good at the moment.
I doubt he's going to throw it away now, Steve. He seems well in control, and I think Schneider's settled for second place. He's dropped back, he's not putting Alsen under any more pressure, and I think he just wants those points in the bag.
Well, out of our sight, Klaus Ludwig now starting to put some pressure on Michael Bartels in his Opel for 6th place. But Bernd Schneider, is he just taking it steadily, or is he starting to push? Now, across the line, 2 laps to go. Lap 23 now of the 25. And again, Uwe Alsen just takes a quick look in his mirrors there as they come down the S's. And a bit of a slip there from Alsen going into the S's as Klaus Ludwig, the veteran, closing in on 6th place, Michael Bartels. And he takes a look down the inside this time, but Bartels closes the door. He's not going to find it easy to pressurise this man.
Yeah, Ludwig's putting the same sort of pressure on Bartels as he put on Schneider, and that worked. So, and interestingly enough, you see Ludwig is actually taking a slightly different line. So I don't know whether that's Ludwig's style of driving or whether it's the car. The Mercedes is capable of turning in a lot earlier into the corner and holding the line and carrying the speed.
Klaus Ludwig, highly experienced racer, made his name at the wheel. First of all, of the Zach Speed Ford Capris in the 70s, then the howling 6-cylinder BMWs, and he takes another look down the inside. But for the last decade or more, Klaus Ludwig has been associated with one manufacturer alone. That has been Mercedes-Benz. He's driven just about everything that they have built. I think the only thing we haven't seen him in is a McLaren Mercedes, but that may well change yet, because Klaus Ludwig, 50 years of age, proving he's got every bit of the competitive instinct he had when he was just 20 years old. And he really is giving that Michael Bartels a very hard time, and he makes his move. A replay here, gets his nose alongside, bit of contact between the 2 cars, but Klaus Ludwig is through into that 6th place. These points.
The amazing thing was there that Bartels knew that Ludwig was there and yet continued to take quite wide lines into all the corners. He didn't drive any defensive lines at all, and Ludwig just really had to pick his corner.
Well, this is looking interesting now. On to the last lap of the race, and Bernd Schneider really is piling the pressure on Uwe Alsen. Alsen has to hold on, and it's a case of batten down your hatches, because Bernd Schneider really on the charge now. Just the final couple of sequences of corners to go, and he's heading to the checkered flag. Uwe Alsen is saluting inside the car because his pit crew are on the wall celebrating there. And the Holzer team, Peter Holzer, gets the congratulations to the rest of the team, and a hand out of the car there from Bernd Schneider to say a job well done. Manuel Reuter makes it 2 Opels in the top 3, and there are some very, very happy Holzer Motorsport mechanics celebrating success for their man. The first ever victory for Uwe Alsen, and one very well deserved. Alsen taking that victory by just a quarter of a second for Bernd Schneider. Manuel Reuter 3rd, he'll get good points. Eric Hellery 4th. His compatriot Lauriello, the best result for Audi yet, with 5th, and Klaus Ludwig 6th. As Opel start to celebrate. But they've got only 20 minutes now to prepare the cars for the next race, which Bernd Schneider will start with a 51-point championship lead over Klaus Ludwig. Manuel Reuter closing in on Ludwig now, just 3 points in it for that 2nd place. This is going to be interesting. Schneider on our left, Alsen on our right. The cars starting, of course, in the order in which they finished the last race. And that means that Uwe Alsen has the pole position, the advantage down into the first corner. Bernd Schneider again has it all to do from the outside of row 1. Then Manuel Reuter and Eric Hellery, P3, P4, row 2 of the grid. 5th 5th and 6th on the grid, Moriello in the Audi. We've never seen that far up before. And Klaus Ludwig, the veteran, in 6th place. But a late panic here, and that's Christian Menzel. Had all sorts of suspension problems in the first race. And Menzel is going to have to start from the pit lane. And two drivers who didn't make the first race start at the back, Peter Dumbreck and Marcel Thiemann, as the cars roll to the line. The lights go from red to green this time, and Uwe Elsen gets a classic rolling start slingshot down into turn 1. Noah Reuter tries to go down the inside of Bernd Schneider, and it's going to be Opel first and second. Schneider tucks into third place, with Wright on his tail. Eric Hellery in the orange Opel Astra ahead of Michael Bartels, and the Audi has disappeared. Aiello dropping back down the pack, so bitter disappointment for Aiello. But at the head of the field, Uwe Elsen, Manuel Reuter, and this is very good for Opel and not good at all for Mercedes-Benz, as Menzel now gets moving out of the pit lane.
Opel definitely have the legs on the Mercedes on the straights, because you saw Reuter there really out-drag Schneider all the way down that start-finish straight. But as we've seen, the Mercedes is a very good handling car, particularly on the brakes. It seems to be to turn into the corners a bit earlier and also to get on the brakes a bit later. So I guess Schneider will want Reuter behind him, but of course Reuter is a threat to his championship lead.
Now this looks interesting, because Manuel Reuter, second place there, is really holding the pack behind him as Uwe Elsen streaks away at the head of the field. Let's take another look at this though, down into turn 1.
And there you see Reuter just pulling ahead and getting down inside Schneider, and Schneider having to give way and take third place. But fortunately this time everybody gets through the first corner cleanly, and maybe that's because Joe Winkelhock's way back at the field.
Well, I'm not quite sure what Gemach mein Ding means, but no ding on the tail of Manuel Reuter's car this time around. And a great battle stacking up behind now, because Eric Hellery in fourth has Klaus Ludwig and Michael Bartels absolutely glued to his exhaust pipe. Meanwhile, Peter Dumbreck working his way up through the field. Look out for the blue and white Mercedes, making very rapid progress up the order. And there's Klaus Ludwig with the red mirrors on his car. Timo Scheider again, the young driver, tucked right in behind Ludwig, having yet another masterclass. And then it's Chris Nissen now with the Audi TT, the best of the Audis, running in 9th position as the cars throw up the dust there. And Marcel Thiemann having a very wild ride at the tail of the field. Obviously his Mercedes is not handling well at all.
I think it was a bit unfortunate there, because somebody kicked up a lot of dust in front of him, and I guess either he got dust on the tyres and just went a bit wide, or he just lost the corner because of the dust cloud in front of him.
And Joe Winkelhock, you were talking about him, started this race in 12th place, and look out behind the Audis now for the red Astra, because Smoking Joe really is storming his way up through the field, up into 9th place now, right on the tail of Chris Nissen. And Aiello has dropped down to last place. There you can see the yellow Audi with the Opel Astra right behind it, and then behind that it's Christian Abt in the second of the Abt Sportsline Audis. Smoking Joe Winkelhock, a great start by him. Peter Dumbreck making his way up through the order. Sadly, no sign at all on the track of Darren Turner. His car too badly damaged in that first race shunt for him to take any further part in the proceedings. James Thompson running at the back there in his yellow Audi. Oh, and contact there. Joe Winkelhock, followed by Christian Abt, goes through 8th and 9th places, but that will be a very angry Chris Nissen.
I think he will be, but actually, to be fair to Joe, I actually think he went to defend the line, because it looked like Abt went to try and get down the inside of him. Joe moved across to the right, but by doing so, he put himself into a position whereby Nissen just turned in and got spun round. Very unlucky for Nissen, though. And here we see it again. And, well, it looks, perhaps there, it looks like Joe just shoved him off in a good sort of touring car move, to be fair to Nissen. But it's a shame, because I have to say, it's good to see those yellow Audis running in midfield and so much stronger than they have been earlier in the season.
Well, there you see it again from team boss Christian Abt's car as Christian gets punted out by Joe Winkelhock, whether it was accidental or by design. The interesting thing is now the stewards are taking a look at that, and they've been handing out the driver standards flag to Winkelhock over the last lap. Meanwhile, race leader Uwe Elsen continues on his way in his Opel Astra, but the Astra of Christian Menzel is not going any further. That car sustained suspension damage in the first of the races, and again, poor old Christian Menzel, after qualifying so well here, is not destined to see the checkered flag. And yet more body contact here, and this is Klaus Ludwig, a very muscular move, puts Michael Bartels 2 wheels on the curb. Bartels comes back, clips the tail of Ludwig's Mercedes, but both cars continue on their merry way. Klaus Ludwig now up into 5th place, and that is not going to do his championship point situation any harm at all, with the man in 2nd place under huge pressure from Bernd Schneider, of course, is his rival for 2nd in the championship. Bernd Schneider, championship leader, currently by a 51-point margin over Manuel Reuter, the man literally in his gun sights here as they head back up to the stadium. And Manuel Reuter is holding back a train of cars. Now, has Reuter got a handling problem and he's defending, or is this deliberate to let Uwe Alsen get a good run onto that 3rd and 4th lap?
I don't think he's holding back. I think he's driving as hard as he can, because you remember in the first race, Reuter had almost a race by himself, but he was dropped totally by both Alsen and Schneider. So I think Reuter just isn't as quick as he was here at the first race of the year, and I think he's just holding up Schneider, not intentionally. Won't be too long, I don't think, before Schneider probably finds a way past.
Well, disappointment, though, for the Audis there. The number 10 car, Christian Abt, also out of the race. Laurent Yellow languishing 14 seconds off the pace now after doing so well in the initial race. And there you see it. I don't think that was a nudge. Christian just getting beyond the limit of the car, and that very short wheelbase does seem to make a rear-wheel drive Audi TT quite a handful.
It does, but the problem, of course, with this track, as we've said, is that there's an awful lot of dust and dirt, and as the race has progressed, particularly we've had the first race, all that dirt which is on the inside of the corner gets pushed to the outside, so any driver who makes a slight mistake and gets slightly wide can just slide off, just as we saw there.
No mistake for Bernd Schneider. He's the man, though, with all the work to do. Join us for more racing after the break. Welcome back to Oschersleben in Germany, round 13. Unlucky for some of the German touring car masters, but not unlucky for these two, Manuel Reuter and Bernd Schneider. But unlucky for someone, because the track is going to recover somebody out the gravel trap there, and I suspect that's Christian Abt with the Audi. Meanwhile, Bernd Schneider, 3rd place, keeps up the pressure on Manuel Reuter, and having got back to the pits, Christian Abt's car there is now getting the big clean-up.
Being de-gravelled, that does not a lot of damage, but it gets into all the places you don't want it to get in a race car, particularly into brakes and brake ducts and things like that.
Manuel Reuter still in that 2nd place, but not for long, because Bernd Schneider gets his nose alongside. He's been threatening to do that for so long. Throws up the dust out of the corner, through into that 2nd place. Now, can he close in on race leader Uwe Alsen? Alsen just flicking through the edge of our shot there as they come down into turn 1 and turn 2. Schneider takes a defensive line this time, and behind him it is a phalanx of Opels. Manuel Reuter and Eric Hellery with the black Mercedes-Benz now starting to close up of Klaus Ludwig, and Ludwig there really throwing up the dust, and Mercedes all of a sudden are coming back on the Opels, which have had the superiority here.
And here we are on board with Schneider as he makes his move on Reuter into the last corner before the start-finish straight. I think he must have had a word with Ludwig in the half-time between the two races, because clearly that was exactly what Ludwig was doing in the first race.
And again, though, that pointier Mercedes able to go into the apex much easier than the Opels. The Opels were the fastest cars here in June. Bernd Schneider, 1:26.48. That is pretty much the same as his qualifying lap. So that is just how hard Bernd Schneider is pushing. And you can see now he is closing in, hand over hand on Uwe Alsen. Eric Hellery, Klaus Ludwig fighting for 4th and 5th. This man, Manuel Reuter, still holding on to 3rd place. But all eyes now on Bernd Schneider, the man who used to share a Mercedes sports car with Michael Schumacher and match him pace in races, including the Le Mans 24 Hours race. That is the level of talent that Bernd Schneider's got. And Uwe Alsen must be able to look in his rear-view mirrors and see that silver arrow getting bigger and bigger with every single corner.
I think what Alsen's done, though, is he's got very comfortable with, and actually here we see Joe Winkelhock, a replay, in fact, taking off Fessler at Joe's favourite corner, the first S after the start-finish straight. This time, not so much carnage, in fact, all cars still running.
And a very narrow escape there for Peter Dambrecht. Watch him come out the dust cloud there. He sees Winkelhock doing an action replay of what he did to him in the first race, but this time they get away with it.
And going back to what I was saying with Alton, I think he got very comfortable there with Reuter holding up the pack and probably didn't push hard enough and was just sort of running at the comfortable pace, in fact running at Reuter's pace because Reuter was dictating the race. Whereas now, Schneider's just got the gas pedal down, is glued to Alton's bumper.
Across the start-finish line, he certainly is. But look to your left there. The naughty boy flag is being prepared and held out, and that is for Joe Winkelhock for that double whammy on the back of Marcel Fessler. And I suspect that they might well be actually inviting Joe Winkelhock into the sin bin for a 10-second stop and go penalty. There are the Opel Team Holzer management just looking on as they see Bernd Schneider closing in again on Uwe Alton, lap 12 of 28 in this race. And Joe Winkelhock into the pits, and he's having his 10-second stop go penalty. They're not allowed to work on the car for 10 seconds, but Joe is gesticulating. There's something else wrong. Now, what is going on with Joe Winkelhock?
Perhaps he needs his ashtray emptying, Joe, but I don't suppose he's a very happy bunny. He's been involved now in 2 incidents, and knowing Joe, I guess it isn't his fault as far as he's concerned. But he's probably got some sort of mechanical problem. It looks like he's talking about some sort of vibration, the way he's gesticulating.
Well, certainly, obviously, a problem for Joe Winkelhock. That car is not going any further. And I'm amazed to see this, because Bernd Schneider really putting the pressure on Uwe Alton now. Pushing, and takes a look down the inside into turn 1. But surely Bernd Schneider, with the championship points at stake, doesn't want to be making some lunge down the inside.
He won't, of course, but he'll probably just try and do what he did in the first race, keep putting Alton under massive pressure. But as we saw in the first race, Alton withstood all that pressure and didn't make a single mistake.
Well, Uwe Alton soaking it up yet again, going very quick again. Oh, and too quick! Right on cue, Uwe Alton drops it. He's spun out. Bernd Schneider through into the lead. Manuel Reuter second place. Ludwig and Bartels through, and Uwe Alton rejoining down in the pack now in 5th position. In fact, Bartels is just behind him, so it's 4th place for Uwe Alton, and he will be literally kicking himself inside that car.
It looked like he made the same mistake as Christian Abt earlier in the race, just getting on the dirt and running wide. And here we see it again. As he turns into this corner, he just obviously just turning a little bit late, gets onto the dirt on the outside, gets on the gas, and there's no grip there, and off he goes into the grass. He was very lucky, actually, not to go into the gravel and end his race.
Now watch the engine as the power comes back in there. The rear wheel's starting to spin almost before the car was stationary. Again, from Bernd Schneider's viewpoint there, he just picks the inside line, keeps well away from the spinning Opel Astra, and through into the race lead.
He was miles from the apex, so clearly he made a big mistake there, not turning in early enough.
Well, Manuel Reuter now in 2nd place. Klaus Ludwig in 3rd position, but across the line, here comes the race leader, Bernd Schneider, followed by Manuel Reuter, followed by Klaus Ludwig. There in 4th place is Uwe Alton and Michael Bartels and Peter Dumbreck. Now look out for the Mercedes-Benz. He is in 7th place. There's Ludwig, then comes Alton, then Bartels, Timo Scheider, and closing in behind Timo Scheider, Peter Dumbreck could be in with the championship points. Oh, and that's James Thompson. He has had a monster of an accident. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah, you see here he comes off that corner again. He seems to get on some dirt. Well, he was blinded by the Audi in front. It was very unlucky if he was. And then he gets what we call a tank slapper, and he fights the car, but it just gets away from him, and then smashed head on straight into the wall. And I think actually where the car soaked up the speed pretty well. James looks all right. Very disappointing for James Thompson, of course, after such a great finish in the 9th place in the first race.
Disappointing too for some of the Audi pit crew. There are a lot of guys from North Yorkshire moving across to Germany to help the Abt Sportsline team run those cars, and looking understandably deflated. Meanwhile, the battle goes on here, and this is Peter Dumbreck absolutely flying at the moment, closing in on Michael Bartels. He's already dropped Timo Scheider, and this could well be a run for 5th place, and that's the race leader. Bernd Schneider makes a mistake, slides off, and you can see how close Manuel Reuter is now. Almost throws the race lead away. What a drama, what a race.
Amazing, actually, because that again proves the condition of the track quite clearly. There is a lot of dirt and a lot of dust out there, and it's even caught out a driver of the quality of Bernd Schneider.
Well, Bernd Schneider cannot afford to make a mistake like that, because Manuel Reuter could well claim 2nd in the championship now, because he is right up there. If he can find a way past Bernd Schneider, he will be ahead of Ludwig for that 2nd place. Let's have a look at what happened to Bernd.
Well, to me, it looks like he actually seemed to turn into the corner a little bit early, got on the curbs, the car got unsettled, he got then onto the outside of the corner where the dirt is and just slid straight off. And boy, was he lucky, he got so close to that gravel.
Well, Reuter still in second place. Klaus Ludwig still in third place. And Manuel Reuter at the moment will wind up equal second on championship points. And Bernd Schneider using every bit of the tarmac and a little bit more. And this really is a heads-down charge now from Bernd Schneider, pushing like crazy to try and open up that margin. Manuel Reuter still there in that second place. He is ahead of Ludwig on the road. He will be equal with Ludwig on championship points. That's going to be good enough for Manuel into the final 4 rounds of the championship. Uwe Alsen still there in 4th position. Michael Bartels still defending from Peter Dumbrecht, 5th and 6th positions. Oh, and Timo Scheider closing the door very hard indeed there. But to no avail, he spins and Marcel Thiemann goes through into 7th place.
It just proves how much these cars really are on a knife edge in these sort of dirty, dusty conditions.
And Peter Dumbrecht, just look at this. Well, Peter Dumbrecht's had a 2nd place, but what about this? This really is a superb drive from the back of the grid. He's up into 6th place, he's in the championship points, and he could easily make it 5th. Michael Bartels, ex-Saxpeed Formula 1 driver, ahead of Dumbrecht. But that is to no worry of the Scot, because Dumbrecht, oh, and that is about as close to that knife edge as you can get.
Yeah, he's pushing very hard, and the problem, of course, is running a little bit wide there. He's put a bit of dirt onto the tyre, so the next corner he gets to, he's got to be very careful when he turns in. But he's clearly pushing hard.
And Michael Bartels pushing equally hard. It's got to be said, absolutely fantastic guys. 5th and 6th places, and they are starting to close in on Uwe Alsen as again Dumbrecht takes a look down the inside. This time Bartels musters his way back onto the inside line, and we're on to the last lap of the race. Bernd Schneider and Manuel Reuter 1st and 2nd, Ludwig 3rd, Uwe Alsen 4th, and this battle for 5th, Michael Bartels and Peter Dumbrecht. Just look at the eyes inside that helmet. That is steely determination from the Scot.
He's driven really well, actually. As you said, he didn't make really the first race, so he's feeling really fresh. Maybe the car isn't as fresh after that accident, but he's pushing so hard. In fact, probably he's pushing too hard, because if he drives like that, he's going to end off the track.
Well, there's only a couple of kilometres left, and this man is at the head of the field. He has broken the Opel monopoly at Oschersleben. Bernd Schneider, the 4th race here in 2 race meetings. It's been drama and spectacle all the way through. But in the 4th of the 4 races, Bernd Schneider in the Mercedes-Benz is heading through the final sequence of corners, heading for the checkered flag. There in 2nd place, Manuel Reuter. He'll be happy with a job well done. He has worked his way through to be ahead of Klaus Ludwig, and that means they will be equal on championship points into the 2 final race meetings of the German Touring Car Masters. The championship is still wide open. This man, though, will have the championship advantage, just as he has the advantage on the track here. Through the final corners, up to the pitch complex. The D2 Mercedes-Benz team, the AMG mechanics on the wall, ready to celebrate as the checkered flag is waved at Oschersleben for Bernd Schneider. Absolute delight for Mercedes-Benz. Probably some relief as well. Klaus Ludwig makes it 3rd place. Alsen 4th. Who is going to be 5th? And it is by almost a photo finish. Peter Dumbrecht has to settle for that 6th position, but absolutely tremendous driving by Dumbrecht. Equally impressive. Bernd Schneider gives the German, the Mercedes-Benz fans something to cheer about. And that 57,000 crowd will go home happy. They've seen Bernd Schneider come and win. They've also seen Opel take victory. They've also seen the renaissance of the Audi team. But this man, Bernd Schneider, is looking increasingly unbeatable for the championship. And confirmation then of that result, Bernd Schneider taking the victory by a 3.6-second margin over Manuel Reuter. Klaus Ludwig 3rd, and Uwe Alsen, well, he must be just wondering what might have been if it hadn't been for that mistake in 4th place, ahead of Michael Bartels and the fighting Peter Dumbrecht in 6th. And as the huge, and this time dry crowd makes their way home, they've got something special to look forward to. Bernd Schneider now has a 59-point lead in the championship over Klaus Ludwig, who is equal second with Manuel Reuter. Marcel Fessler, Joe Winkelhock and Peter Dumbrecht now feature in the top 6. But 2 weekends still remain of action. The classic circuits of the west of Germany, the Nürburgring and Hockenheimring. But here on the podium at Oschersleben, the 3 men who are going to take that championship into the closing stages. Leader Bernd Schneider, the veteran Klaus Ludwig, and Opel driver Manuel Reuter. A tremendous championship remains in prospect.
So that's it from Checkered Flag for this week from Oschersleben. The DTM is definitely back on the road. Next time we're from the evocative Nürburgring in the Eifel Mountains. Until then, take care.
The engine's cooling for a couple of minutes, then we'll be back on the fast track with more hot stuff from Silverstone. Next on 4.